morning. Thank you so, so much for everybody that's here, that's listening, that's in the group with us. My name is Cheryl Sutherland, and I have new hair. I am the founder of Please Notes Goods, Resonate Strategies, and basically, I do a lot of really great things to help you become your favorite version of you. Here with my gorgeous co-host, the one and only Liza McHale, multipreneur, especial. I don't know where these words are coming from. And we are here for navigating mindfulness, where we have the opportunity to talk about different tools, different tips, different ways that we can continue building our delicious businesses and do it in a way that feels good, that feels intentional, and also allow us to get over obstacles, AKA sleeping policemen, in ways that feel really good, learn our lessons and move through things. So we have an amazing guest here. Now, this guest, I mean, the universe delivered her to me in like a little package with a little bow. And I was like, yes, I receive it. But she's literally like one of my favorite people. I actually talk to her more than I talk to most people. So, without ado, I have the most amazing friend. I just keep looking at you and I'm like, yes, this person, Camille Telecia, Camille. That
Telecia.
Telecia. She is actually known as the Intentional Goddess on Instagram, and she is intentionally going to bring us into the world of human design, not only as a business, but also in a way to integrate it into our lives so that we can support ourselves in really stepping into our zones of genius, really stepping into the things that feed us, the things that support us, and then also being mindful of the things that we are not as great as, so that we can really focus on those things that are working and then making sure that we're moving forward. So with that, hi Camille, welcome to the club.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so like I'm just gonna like my cheeks hurt because I'm smiling a little bit too much because this is a great day. I'm seeing your face. I'm like, girl. Um so long story short, we met on one of these new social networking apps called Clubhouse. And again, the universe brought us together in like the very first room that I was in. Turns out we're in also a Facebook group together. And we just kept connecting and like building different rooms together, having conversations and supporting each other, with me bringing in that personal growth, affirmation magic, intentionality magic, and her coming into the human design aspect. So before we get into it, I would love for you to tell the listeners, what is human design and how does it play in your life?
I have to be honest, every time I try to explain human design, I don't know if I'm getting more succinct or more long-winded. So I'll do my best. So human design is I'm going to call it a hybrid modality that was channeled by this gentleman named Ra Uru Hu, I think back in like the 70s. And it ended up being a combination of like I Ching, the chakra systems, astrology, genetic code, Kabbalah, and something else, where combined, when you go in and you put your birth time, birthday, and birth location, a body graph is just developed based on, I think some of it may be where the planets are, of course, the whole zodiac thing. But the thing that it starts showing you that I love the most about it are the 9 centers, right? So we don't have to get into all that. So the 9 centers, some of which are related to the chakra system, and whether they are defined or undefined, whether they're connected by active channels or open, like these open channels, or what gates are active and all of that. And so when you start putting all of that information together, you get like a type, a strategy, an authority, a profile, all of these different things that are unique to you in that combination. And they tell you so much about yourself. And it may not even necessarily be things that you are like learning that are new. It may just be validating these are the reasons why you have been doing the things that you're doing. And here is how you can now maximize this behavior that you've always been doing so that it's really serving your highest good. And then these are the ways that you maybe can switch some things up so that you can also be operating in a more aligned way and be at peace, be satisfied, be successful, all of those things.
I love
Yeah,
that. So I know that
long-winded.
there's different types. Like I know for me, I'm a manifesting generator. And then when I heard that, I was all like, okay. I was really excited about it because I was like, yes, I'm
Love
very,
it.
it's very weird. I feel like I've been continually looking for a lot of reinforcement or I guess things
Massive
to
evidence.
yeah, to like back up what I want to be true. And then I see it and I'm like, yay. And then I don't believe it. So with that, like that is my opportunity for growth is learning into that. However, tell us a little bit more about those different types. Like again, me being an MG, but there's also different ones as well.
What I will start with is like, so we have the manifestors, right? And they are the initiators of human design. They are the only type of the 5 types that are able to initiate, and it's being in their design. So they can initiate action, they can just do things, like they can have the night have an idea and go do it, or somebody says something that prompts them to want to do something and they can just begin the action, right, without resistance necessarily from the universe, from other people, if they're following their strategy, which is a whole other conversation. Then we have the generators and the manifesting generators. And because we have that generator battery, right? Like we are the ones who are meant to do a lot of the work because we have the energy to get it done. But the thing is, we are only meant to do the work that is fulfilling to us, that makes us feel good, that we are in alignment with. And again, that we get clarity on that by following our strategy, which is to respond to things. So manifestors can initiate action, just initiate after, and they have to inform, they need to inform the people around them so that they're not creating the friction. But generators and manifesting generators, we have to be in response. So, and it's best when we can be in a yes or no type of response, because that is the language of the sacral center. And I know you did mention people don't know exactly what that means, but the thing is, I'm just going to speak in the language of human design. And then if this interests you in any way, I would recommend you either go to mybodygraph.com so you can see it for yourself and run your chart, or you can call me and book a session with me and I can walk you through it myself. Shameless plug. Okay. But so the sacral speaks mostly in the language of yes or no. And so generators, when things are presented to us, when opportunities come our way, we respond, yes, we would like to commit our energy and our work, our life force energy to this and make it happen, or, you know, put some work on it, whatever. Or no, that doesn't feel good to me. That's not what I want to do. That's not in alignment with me. And so, oh wow, I will not be providing you my energy, giving my energy to that. So, and then manifesting generators have a little extra where you all are able to still initiate some things, right? But you initiate in response to your first yes. So Cheryl, for you as a manifesting generator, what'll happen is somebody will say, like, let's say Liza's like, hey Cheryl, do you want to record the podcast today? And you'll get your first like yes or no from your sacral, like, yeah, I think so, or no, I don't. So if it's a yes, you will start doing stuff to get ready for the podcast, right? So now you're initiating the action, but you are still not at your definitive yes until you have done your taste test, what is what I like to say. Like, you've tasted it a little bit, you went and did some sampling to see how you felt about it, and then if it is definitely a yes, then you move forward. So you kind of like initiate, you respond, initiate, and then really really respond. So it's interesting. And as manifesting generators, you are again also here to achieve mastery like regular generators, through doing work that fulfills you. But there are, you guys are also about creating the shortcuts to your to your mastery. And you may end up going back and having to clean up some steps, but shortcuts. Okay, so then the projectors are the ones who are our guides, right? Because the projectors are able to like sample the energy around them through their open centers to figure out who needs to who has the energy to do what, who has the resources to do A, B, or C, and sort of guide the rest of us in how we can best make the project that the manifestor initiated work and come to fruition the easiest. Is this making sense, what I'm saying?
Well, I know it is for me. I'm like, yes.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
It's
Okay.
totally making sense, and I love how you're taking the 5 different types and showing us how they work together.
Yeah, because that's
Yeah.
ultimately what it's about, right?
Yeah.
And so then the last one is the reflectors. And again, I not that this means anything to you if you don't know human design, but reflectors are open. They have no defined centers, which means they are the most open to everybody's energy and understanding what's going on, feeling what's going on in their body. And then because the reason they're called reflectors is because what they do is everything that they take in from their environment, the external, the people around them, they reflect it back out through their open centers. So anytime you're with a reflector, you can get a good gauge on just like the state of the group you're in, or the state of the place that you're working, or the state of your home, the state of your relationship, based on what they are displaying back to you or reflecting back to you. And so it's like the projector is guiding everything, and the reflector is the one who is like, okay, yeah, this is working, this isn't working, based on how I'm feeling everybody moving. So there is supposed to be some symbiosis through between the 5 types. That really is what makes a small group of people work together, or an entire society, right?
I love that. So one thing I would want to get into, and I do want to get into, is to learn more about how you actually got into this. Like, how did you transition? How did you discover this new career? And how has it been building this as a business?
So, okay, so how did I get into it? The first I got into it 4 years, almost 5 years ago now, almost five, with my life coach and mentor. She ran my design for me when I started working with her. And she gave me the whole print. Listen, when she gave me this printout that had all the stuff, the information, like she had some breakdowns on things. And I still have this to this day. I have notes on notes on notes on this thing because I found it so fascinating. And so I always kind of just like kept it around. Like I would think about it when things came up with friends. I would share with them, like, you know what? Hey, let's run your chart really quick and see if, like, I'm that girl. Like, hey, why don't we, like, do you know your birth? Do you know what time you were born? Yeah, let's run your chart and let me see. And so I would share with them different things, but I honestly didn't start incorporating it into my business until this year. And it's because I don't I guess I was in response to something. As a generator, there was something that came about that I that responded to, that said, you know what, let's include this in what you're offering. Because I was all mostly about, just like the personal development of it all, the spirituality of it all inside of building a business. Because that, to me, those are like the foundations that keep you really grounded in what you're doing, right? Especially in building a business. If you have nothing like anchoring you to your purpose and to this thing that's bigger than you, it's easy to kind of get lost in the sauce, or get discouraged, or kind of end up doing all of the different things. And so that was my foundation. And then I started talking about it again, and then it was like it went from talking about it to doing an intro class, and then doing another intro class, and then doing individual readings, and here we are.
That's
And
awesome.
here we are now with what it is. Yeah.
I have a question about your transition. Were you working a regular job at this time when you started 4 years ago, or did you just pivot 100% and just start your practice?
So my story is interesting. I was working a job. I started my coaching business, my original coaching business, in 2015. I was working a job, but I also was, I had just moved back to Atlanta from Los Angeles because my mom was diagnosed with stomach cancer, and it was stage 4. So I came home, right? I was like, oh, okay, no, I need to be home.
Mhm.
And so in the midst of all of that, I had this extra time. And so I started building my business. But, I was also like just grieving and everything. And so when I started working with my coach, I quit. I had already planned to quit my job. I think it was like within 6 weeks of me having started work with her, because my mom had passed away in February. I started working with her in the April, because I needed the support, right? And I also was just like, I'm not going back to LA, which is where my job was. And they were gracious enough to allow me to work remotely for 6 months while I was home, or however long it was. It might have been like 8 months.
Yeah.
And so I just was like, I'm not going back to LA. So I was like, it's fine, some savings, whatever. So I was like, I'm just gonna go full in on doing this coaching thing at this point,
Nice.
why not? So yeah.
That's awesome. So for business owners like myself, like I just had like not just the, how do I say this? Not just like the preliminary one. Like I feel like when kind of like how you were talking about human design and astrology are kind of similar in the context of like we've got these generalities and then it gets more succinct when we take a look at like the additional specifics. So in regard to that, with me building a business or me bringing in like new people, et cetera, how does this really play within that? So I want to talk first of all about like being a solopreneur. Like what can my body graph, what can my reading, what can this conversation really support me in regards to how to build the business.
Mm-hmm.
And then what about like as the business grows and bringing on more people, like how do I integrate that human design concept or construct?
Yeah, I got you. No worries. I think that's a great question. And one of the things that I've been doing um, to support my clients, right, is in number one, in understanding your body graph, right, and understanding your design. You have that strategy and that authority, right? Those are the first two things that I usually go over to support them in the action taking, because that's what the strategy and authority are about. So the strategy again is about initiating action, right? And so as a generator, as generators, all of us are generators. Okay, sorry. So as generators, we have to be in response, right? And it doesn't mean we move immediately once we are in response. It just means that before we even consider taking an action, we check and say, am I responding to something or am I initiating something? And so once you acknowledge I'm in response, like something prompted me, I saw something and it prompted me, somebody said something and it prompted me, somebody asked me a question and it prompted me, then you drop it into your authority, which Liza, you have emotional authority. Cheryl, I haven't seen your chart. Well, I don't have it in front of me. I've seen it in the room.
Oh girl,
Do
I
you
got it right here.
know?
Let me drop it in the
Okay,
chat.
what's your authority?
Um,
So if you have an emotional authority as well, for you guys, your decision-making process, because what that authority is now saying, is this a yes or is this a no for me? Is this something I'm moving on? And so once you go through that process, then you will have a very clear knowing one way or the other of should I move, should I not move, right? And so for me, like I am a sacral authority. So I am able to move a little more instantly than you all on the major things, right? Because nobody's saying like, okay, drop it into your authority if you want to go eat dinner. Like, come on, just go eat. Just go eat. Like, just decide what you want to eat and go eat. It's not going to change your life any drastic way. But if it's like, should I launch this product or, should I go into this partnership? Those are the type of things that you want to make sure you are dropping into your authority so that you can know if it aligns with you, if you have the energy for it, because that's ultimately, as generators, that's the main thing that we are getting clarity on. You have emotional authority as well, Cheryl.
hey,
We're getting clear on, do we want to commit our energy into doing this thing, right? And so those are the two things that as entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, or anybody honestly, but I definitely think in business that we keep in mind, because also your type helps inform like even how you can best show up on the internet, right? Like when you're doing your marketing. So as generators, it's really great for us to create opportunities for our audience to respond to a yes or a no, like asking them yes or no questions, or when we are putting things out there, when we're launching things, making sure I'm launching this because I'm in response. And I will give you a prime example. I had this idea that I was like, oh, I'll do an intro to human design class, like live workshop, right? Like I'll do it and whatever. So I had one scheduled for last Saturday and one scheduled for this Sunday. But did I have anything that I responded to create this class and launch it? No. And do you think that anybody signed up? One person
Mm.
between the two. And
Because
so
you
that it's
didn't,
like
sorry to
I
interrupt you,
wasn't in
because you
response.
were not in response. This was an idea that you manifested and you weren't in response. So it did not.
So I wasn't following my strategy.
Okay, got it.
And so energetically, I'm not going to get the same response that I would if somebody had said you should do da 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 da, and then I put it out there and I was like, no, and then I checked with my authority and then I said yes and moved. I guarantee I would have had people. Guarantee you, like without it, because I've seen it. I've seen how it is when I am in response and how easy it is and how things are in flow and it's less work and it's less of a, oh my God, I got to make this happen. And that is basically what's available for each of the types. Excuse me. If I can talk about projectors for a second, right? They have to be invited or
Got it.
recognized before they can take action. And so a lot of projectors end up feeling bitter. That is literally, they're not self-esteem. Also in human design, another thing. But their thing is like they get bitter because they're like, well, why is nobody seeing me? They feel like they're not being seen, but mostly it's they're not getting the recognition, or they're not staying present to opportunities to be recognized, like where people are recognizing them or coming and offering them invitations, because they're too busy trying to make all these things happen, which they're not supposed to do. So they get bitter and they get burnt out. But if they just choose instead to show up as themselves, show up in whatever they're masters of, show up in their strengths, in their skills, all of that, and just allow people to see it. And like social media, I think is really great for projectors if they use it in the manner of, I'm going to allow people to see my expertise, my mastery, how I can support, what I can do to serve, and then allowing the people to come in, see that, and then extend invitations. Life is so much easier for them, except for that patience piece. It's like as soon as they master patience and waiting for the invitation, things just move for them a lot, so much easier, and they feel a lot better about it.
It's
So
so sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No, that was
No,
it.
I'm really
I
excited.
literally
Okay.
was about to throw it back to you. So
Okay, so this is like, obviously there's a lot that comes into it, and I think that's one of the super important components, because it's unlike astrology, or unlike, like, because I know all the things. I know I'm a fire tiger. Okay, I know that like my enneagram, like what like all of the personality tests, I know what
yeah,
the things are, right? Like maybe I should put
you're
them on my dating
ENFJ or
profile.
whatever.
This is
Yeah.
who I am. Like, where do you fit in, right? However, when I was actually having my session done, so Katie from Sort of Spiritual was kind enough to give me a session. We went into all these different things, and I had so many realizations about the way that I build my business and the way that feels really good to me. B, the people that I attract, how I'm dealing with people, and a lot of the learnings that I've had in the last year. Like, let's say, for example, me having to respond, like somebody had asked me for something. I checked, like, do I want to do this project? And internally I was like, right. And I was like, no, I'm only going to do this. However, like, I'll do this if you take the lead on this, because I don't have the bandwidth to be able to do
Beautiful.
that, right? And then what ended
Yeah.
up happening is that they said no, or sorry, not that they said no, they did no, right? Like, they didn't step up in their leadership. And therefore, it's so funny, on my thing, the transferred motivation is guilt. So I felt guilty for having to be like, okay, like, I don't feel comfortable being in this project anymore with these people anymore, because this does not feel good. Then of course I had to go back and be like, you know what, this is, and Liza and I had this conversation about, like, I got to piece out of this. I pieced out, and then every other person that was on that project was like, oh yeah, I felt the same way too. But like, unless like those lessons of me being able to actually connect with how I'm feeling about something took years years to learn. However, if I had done like a human design mapping, if I had gotten that beforehand, then I would have been able to be like, oh, the reason that I feel this way is justified and it's okay. Because I
Yeah.
often go to guilt. I often go to like, you know, having to be lesser than for so many different reasons, because I feel like, again, old childhood stuff, like where people were talking about, you know, Cheryl, you're all about the, like, you're too much, right? And then me having to limit myself. One of the things that I also learned, and like I'm talking about me, one of the things that I also learned that was really reassuring for me was that there was a lot of things around, I guess like my, the top thing, my earth, whatever. I've got a lot of sexual energy, and sexual energy meaning that like the way that I communicate when I'm having conversations, it can be very penetrating. So people are either like, you know, like it's a lot of energy and people are either
Mm-hmm.
like, that's a lot, or they're like, you know, like they can definitely see and I can definitely push off a lot of energy. So that comes down to a couple things for me. When I was younger, I used to feel really responsible for how other people, sorry, when I was younger, I used to feel really responsible for how other people felt. And it was my responsibility to change how they felt. And I knew that I had that power from a very long time ago. And then I actually turned it around the wrong way, as in like I felt like I had to do this. I had to make my mom feel happy. I had to make I had to be all these different people for all these different people to make sure that they were okay. And then it came from like, this is just something I have to do. However, it shows up so well in my profession as being a speaker, as being like a trainer, because this is some like people feel my passion, people feel my excitement, people feel the growth, the people feel the possibility and the belief that I have in them, which is super delicious because that's exactly what I want to create. So really getting into these, a lot of these different parts can really support you, not only in your own leadership skills and then finding your zone of genius, finding that passion that you want to build, but then also, of course, when finding a team. Now, one of the things that you had shared is that, you know, like, let's say, for example, as I'm going through as a manifesting generator, there's certain things that I'm really, really good at, right? And of course, there's going to be things that I'm not good at, with like really needing to be the one to do everything because I'm really good at creating things. And like, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the thing. But then also like not being able to delegate things and like let other people take care of me and let other people support me. So like when looking for additional staff members, making sure that I am receiving staff members that are also in that same space, that are able to support me in all these different areas that I might not be able to support myself in. So my another question that I have is, for you, as you built your business, what was the obstacles that you had to overcome in order to say yes, in order for you to stand in all of you and say like, this is what I do, this is my magic, and this is how I support people, this is why it's important.
I mean, I honestly went on a whole like spiritual journey when it came to getting to this point. Like the intentional goddess is basically a whole other iteration of my initial business, which was like just Camille Telecia, the business coach. You know, like I had that branding, like that. She still exists somewhere on the internet, you know, a little bit like Instagram, all of that. But I was at this point where I was not being successful, right? Like I wasn't bringing in clients. I wasn't like the things I was doing weren't working, probably because I wasn't responding to anything, but that's a
Mhm.
whole other story. I was just not present. I wasn't aware. And I was like, things were just not working. And my coach was like, I want to challenge you to just stop working on this, doing anything in this business for 90 days. And I've had like a panic attack. I was like, I can't not, like, what? 90 days? What are you talking about? And so I talked her down to 60. I was like, what if I did 60? And then right before the 60 days were supposed to start, I went to this conference for this women's group that I was in, right? And we were in Beaufort, South Carolina, and I thought it was just going to be like us having some of our like leadership sort of conversations, that sort of thing. It was a whole other spiritual experience for me. And I had been going through this part of my healing journey was really in getting to a space where I was comfortable being in genuine and authentic relationships with women,
Mm.
and just like friendships and working relationships, you know, that sort of thing. Because it's like yeah, of course, we all have our girlfriends from childhood, and it's like, sure, like we've grown up together, so you have that default friendship. But in making adult women friendships, there was always a little bit of a block, right? There was always a like, well, I don't really trust her, or, and a lot of it was internal. I wasn't even aware of it. And so I had been doing work, especially being a part of that women's group for probably like a year and a half, just, like incrementally. Like I was just a member, and then I became a leader, and then I became a mentor. And so each level of being in the group expanded my exposure to women, like having to deal with more women, having to manage them, having to handle them, having to learn how to connect with them. And so by the time I got to the event in 2018, it was like it just like popped me open. And I remember driving back home, and I had so much clarity about the intentional goddess. I was like, oh, I'm about to do this. I'm about to create things with intention. I'm going to do this. Like everything had the word intention behind it. And so I did stop working on the Camille Telecia stuff, because I was like, I literally did my 60 days, because I started building a whole other thing, because I had this new clarity. I just had the spiritual awakening. I was very woo woo about it, right? And it started out as like, oh, I'm just gonna make like waist beads and jewelry for women with intention, and it's gonna be so lovely, and I'm just gonna support the women. And then I was like, but that's not. I was like, I can't not be in some sort of like support capacity for
Mm.
with other women. Like I need, like I can't, I just, it's not possible. So then I was like, well, I'll add the coaching piece. So it was waist beads and life coaching and supporting you in those kind of conversations, and it was really beautiful. And as I continue to be in response now to the things that are showing up, as I'm showing up for myself and for other people, then the entrepreneurship started coming back in, because the women who were coming into my groups were business women, and so they had these needs, and I saw the need, so I responded. I said, hey, would you like to have would you like it if I showed you XYZ? Like, I know these things, I have these skills. Would you like if I incorporated it? Responding, and then also giving them something to respond to in turn, right? They said yes. And so I just kept responding and responding and responding to here I am now, fully incorporating human design, doing the readings, talking to the business women and doing the masterminds and all of that under human design, just being in response. And it feels amazing. Like the business has felt amazing, because I've been able to incorporate myself, like my creativity, all of the things in whatever I'm offering. But this right here feels so in alignment, and feels like such an opportunity that's even bigger than what I'm seeing right now. And I know it's just because I have intentionally chosen to continue to do the things that I know work, following my design, following my strategy, and just honoring all of that and myself. I don't know if that
Mm.
answered your question, honey, but that's what I got.
Yeah, that feels really, really good. Lisa?
I do have one question, because I love how, you keep going back to you're a generator, therefore I operate better and get better results, and in more alignment when I am in response mode. I didn't hear, what was the one thing you heard about, like, what was the triggering, what were you responding to in creating the intentional goddess? Was it the fact that you were told not to work on the other business, so this was the response? Like, what does a response look like?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So part of it, I think the reason I was even open to considering the stuff that I was because yes, I was responding to that prompt to stop working on my other thing. But the other part of it was, while I was at that conference, I the visionary for that women's group, she had asked me to support her in creating these they're like the little metal bracelets that you could stamp words on. They were,
Mhm.
and I think it was intentional words. Like you would say, like, what's your intention? And stamp the word on them. And the energy around it, I loved. Like I really resonated with it. And I was like, I could bring this to people. And I literally was just responding to that one thing. I was like, I would love to create that. And even in just saying it, I felt the yes in my body. Like the response from my cycle was like, yes, I was getting excited when I got home. I bought some beads and played around, and I just showed it to a couple friends and they loved it as well. So I've also just got that feedback. But the initial response was just that, something that simple as like I was just stamping intentions on a freaking metal bracelet. But it's like, look what it created though,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So the reason I asked that is because, to respond to something is like, so first it was a scenario your coach says to you, drop this thing that you're working on. And then you're
Yeah.
in another, so that's like an auditory instruction. But then you're just doing something and you hear something like it could be a response, or it could be like, hey, I'm taking an initiative here and doing something. So I think working with somebody like you would provide the clarity of like what is a response versus what is like you're going to take off and do
Yeah.
something, and then that's not going to. So there's like nuances there that I could see why you guys talk every day. I can see why because I know Cheryl is all into knowing what she has. So I'm just going to recap what we've learned really quick. So there are 5 types of designs, or 5 types of human designs. And they're backed and supported by a strategy and an authority.
Yes.
Am I following you along so far?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. And that's high, like just high level what I've got so
Very
far.
high. We have it.
I'm like, I get we're
Very
going
high.
right into the granule, but I just want to like lift up a little bit and go like, okay, so there are 5 strategies. You're going to fall into one of them. Sorry, types of human design. And I do love it, Cheryl. Thank you for inviting Camille to join us, because it does encapsulate all of these woo-woo type of things that actually, obviously from the 2 of you, have had an impact on how you're operating your businesses. I'm
Yeah.
like super excited to learn more, because I'm like, okay, so what does it mean when you're emotional? And I'm like, well, since
And
Cheryl
we
and I
haven't
are
even
almost the
gotten into
same,
it.
I know, but so you can't really assume that just because Cheryl and I have like the same type and we have the same authority, that our strategies are going to be the same, because we're not the same human. Is that
Well,
fair?
the strategy and the authority, those will be the same. Like the strategy will be the same based on type. So
Okay.
you're both generators. So, and as am I. So we all have the same strategy. The authority is based on which of your centers are defined. So the fact that both of you have a defined emotional solar plexus, that is always, the emotions are always going to be the overriding authority for everything else, because the other authorities are sacral authority, which is pure generators like myself. We have, our authority comes right from our sacral only. There's splenic authority based on what your spleen is telling you. And then there's heart or ego authority as well, which is based on like what your heart is telling you to do. And then there is environmental and mental. There's a few other
There's a
authorities.
lot.
Let's just say
Wow.
there's even one where they have to wait 28 days to make it. They have to wait a
Wow.
lunar cycle to make a decision.
Wow.
Okay.
So
How long? Sorry, Cheryl, go ahead. I want to
no, I was gonna ask, like, because when people talk about human design and like 4 1s and like 22 8s with their gates and stuff, I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you learn this stuff? So how long does it actually take you to like study and digest and be able to actually support people with these readings?
I mean, each reading that I get, I request at least 48 hours between booking and the date that you want to get it, because there, like the overall things, obviously I can talk to you about your centers and your type and all of that, but then when it gets into the channels, I don't even touch the gates in your intro reading, because I'm going through all of the other things first, plus each individual center, like what it means if it's open or defined. And so then I just touch on the channels externally. And I mean, like, the reading itself is usually about 2 hours. So if that gives you any indication, and honestly, every time I do a new reading, like I am learning more, and so it's like I think that's what I love about this, is because there's so much to learn. Like even in Cheryl's chart that she sent us, like she has one that is more It has even more of the things that you can get from human design, like the type of, like, her environment is kitchen's dry and the determination is hot and all of that. And like some of that has to do with even the types of food that you eat. There's a gentleman that I got like a food reading from last year, and found out that like I'm supposed to basically eat in silence. And he got that from my human design. I don't know where he got it from because I haven't gotten to that level yet. But like those are all of the things that you can really learn and dive into with human design. There's a layer you can look at how you engage with other people, which channels they have active, which channels you have active, which ones are unconscious versus conscious, which are hanging and up. Like there's so much to it. So I've like right now just committed myself to mastering that introductory. It's really the foundation, right? Because these it's the things that you need to know before even the rest of the stuff really will serve you, right? Like if you
Mhm.
don't know that you're a generator, but you know you have an active 63 gate, that doesn't mean anything to you.
Mhm.
Right. Like it's like, so what do I do with an active 63? Like nothing, you don't know. And so I've committed to mastering that stuff first, and really like I want to be able to just call up a gate and a channel and say this is what it is. I don't know if my memory will support me at that, because sometimes I say I have the memory of a 65-year-old woman, but But for right now, to answer your question in the most long way possible, at least 2 days, I prefer to just have enough time to go through to really understand somebody's chart so I can know their profile and talk to them about that, and the channels and their centers and all of that and how it all works together for them.
So where did you learn all of this? Like, is this just like you know how some people are like, yeah, I learned how to braid from YouTube. So where did you learn all these things?
Well, I mean, of course, my coach, right? Because she also she had gone through the train. I don't know if she worked with Ra himself, but she was in like some of those initial trainings, and so I was trained for under her for a while, and then myself, like I just keep learning, like buying the books, reading the books, reading
Mm,
the websites, like doing all the things. Because my profile, I'm a 1-3 investigator martyr, and the investigator side of me loves to learn. Like so I'm all like, if there's something in front of me and there's layers to learning it, like I'm going to deep dive always. Like the example I use is one day I got the notion that maybe I wanted to put sister locks in my hair, the micro locks. Just I
mhm.
had the notion, and I went on YouTube and I watched one video to 2 videos to 3 videos to 5 hours later. Now I could probably tell you how to interlock. I could tell you how to grid your hair if you wanted to do the daggone things. And then I was like, this isn't for me. I don't even want to do that. Like, but I felt very satisfied in having learned the information,
Right,
like
right,
it
right,
just really served me to just deep dive on that stuff. So
Mhm.
that also is for me part of the experience, is just doing the research and learning.
right.
So based on your chart, if I'm saying that correctly, your chart, your graph, um, it also supports you in whether or not you're bringing on staff, whether or not you're, building additional programs and resources for people. So like, what would you say would be the best thing for people that are also looking to grow their business, but be in alignment, really utilize the support from not only the universe, but just like the way that their inner workings are already set up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I am off what I offer to people who get readings with me is I pay attention to like the centers you have open, or like the other types, right? So for manifest, basically anybody who's not a generator, if they are building a business and the fulfillment piece of the business is something that is high, like requires a lot of time or energy, like definitely trying to find somebody that they can bring on their team that's a generator. So even if the person isn't the one doing the fulfilling, just being in connection with you, you have access to that work energy, like that life force energy that we generators have, so that they can work longer. Because, excuse me, nobody else, no, none of the other types are designed to do long-term sustainable work.
Mhm.
Whereas like I'm sure you guys have been in positions where like you have a project, if you're excited about it, you could start it at 7 a.m. and still be going at midnight. if it's exciting, right? Like if you're into it, you have it and it's no problem. None of the other types are really designed to do that. They can do it, of course, because we're humans, like we have the capability, but if they do that on a consistent basis, they will actually run into health problems, right? Like because they're running on energy they don't have, essentially. And so even if you don't need the person to do the work for you, having them around, if your sacral is open, you have an opportunity to just tap into that energy, amplify that generator energy when they're around you so you can get more work done, right? So you can get those things done. That's one thing I think about for them. Like for me, right now that I'm doing a lot more sharing and speaking, and I mentioned this in the room on Sunday, right? Like how my throat is open. So my communication center, my manifestation center, I don't have consistent access to that energy. So it supports me when my friends like Cheryl will come into the room, and even if they don't say anything, just holding space, she has a defined throat. Another one of my friends who's a projector has a defined throat. And so having them in the space allows me to be able to communicate more efficiently, right? And more clearly, and probably for a more longer extended period of time, because I get access to that energy in conversation. And Liza, you may find that as well because your throat is also open. And so you may find it easier to do a podcast. Like, I think it's amazing that you and Cheryl partnered to do this, right? Because when you guys are here together, you have a little more access, consistent access to that communication energy, right? When you guys are in the space together. And so it's just like little things like that. You can go by the centers, or you can go by the types and say, okay, like, do we have a projector on the team who can help read the room a little better and offer us like, here, you go here, you go here, you go here? Because you'll find a lot of projectors, when they are standing in their power, give some of the best insight. And like just naturally, they'll just be like, well, have you thought about like, why don't you do da 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 da? Like, especially if you invite them to share. And so you're really activating them so that they are in their design, they're in their truth, honey. They can change your lives. Like,
I love it. I love it. So I want to just circle back to like the amount of time, because it sounds like it's a deep dive. Like this is like beyond a deep dive. This is like into the blue, right? Like, so I'm hearing they sign up 48 hours later, they might get to sit with you for 2 hours. And then what happens after the 2 hours? Like after you give them their reading or their initial reading, is that the end of the engagement for you? Or is that a fork in the road where there are options of what they can do?
Well, right now it is sort of the end point because, like I said, like I've just been in response. And so the next thing that I am being prompted by spirit to do is create like a mastermind coaching group sort of thing where they can all come together and you know, without giving away all my proprietary ideas, you know, just basically creating a space where we can all be speaking the same language together. And it doesn't just have to be about business, right? So you can get support, because I mean, life happens too, and you still need to respond or be invited or do whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like you still need to run it through your authority for life things. And so just creating a space for that, where they can either just be in the group situation, or they can also have the additional coaching support. So like if it's something that they really need to talk out, or they need some clarity around it, you know, the rest of the coaching experience, then I'm making that available too. And so I'm just waiting for that final prompt to actually say yes, and not say yes, to hit the button to go, because I am a yes. It feels like a yes, but I haven't gotten the thing that says, okay, share it with the world, but put a price on it, put it on the website, and have people come purchase it now. And so I am being very mindful, because I just got a reminder of what happens when I hit the go button and I didn't respond. And so I know that this is something that is going to serve and going to support especially women. And so I just want to make sure I'm really honoring every step of the way, so that it comes into fruition in the way that it needs to. But yeah, that's the intention, is that's going to be the next step.
Okay, I love that.
Thank
And
you.
again, please make sure that you visit Camille over at Intentional Goddess. Google her, follow her on Instagram, stalk her on all social media profiles, because I know I do. And just make your life easier. And, you know, I'm just going to speak from the context of my experience with human design. Before I got my in-depth reading, I was like, yeah, no, I'm a manifesting generator. Like, this is my people to respond. I'm like, I don't really know what that means. But in being in continual, I guess, in the continual space of you, Camille, I've been able to see stuff and really learn even about, like, you know, like I have an open head. And I was like, what do you mean I have an open head? Well, a lot of ideas can come in. And a lot of times these ideas are other people's ideas, and some of them are my ideas. And it just was such a reassurance, because I was like, am I just a flake? You know what I mean? Like, am I just like somebody that says they want to do something, but then it feels wrong when I say it. And then I'm like, I feel guilty if I don't continue doing it. One of the things that did come up, and again, I'm just referring back to my reading because, you know, that's the easiest context for me, is that two things that were really delicious. One, that based on like the energy flow in my chart, that I'm really meant for entrepreneurship, that I'm really great for entrepreneurship because of my ability to create. And then also, like, you know,
that 2644 channel makes you an amazing salesperson. Sorry, go ahead. I saw it and I was like, oh, okay, Cheryl. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. Don't be sorry. Don't apologize for using your gifts, girl. Like, yes. However, at the same time, one of the things that popped up for me was the opportunity to surrender. And when I choose to surrender, when I choose to relax into the fact that everything is going to be okay, and really not have to be the one to move all the parts, not to have to be the one that's a catalyst for things, being that, okay, surrendering is actually a good thing for me, that it helps me change the way that I see entrepreneurship, right? It helps me see the way that, and even in the Clubhouse rumor in the other day, talking about relaxation and giving to oneself, like making myself a priority, whether it is to take a shower, brush my teeth, and like have a proper meal, really care for myself in the way that I want other people to care for me, that is actually going to support me in growing my business. That's also going to support me in living a delicious life. That's also going to support me in being able to give the most value and being able to support the way people in the way that only I can. So with that, I think that it's super important to take a look at your human design, because again, for myself, it really shored up a lot of the things I felt were inconsistent with myself, but it really read me for filth. Like, it was a whole thing. And then it also allowed me to change the way I see myself and practice a level of self-love that I've never been able to before, in really not only knowing myself for the last 34 years, stepping in the space of like, yes, Cheryl, this is who you are and this is okay. Like, really coming into the fact that, like, I personally know that I'm meant to be like deliciously rich, and then also being able to support people in delicious ways. And that like the level of success that I have is really only impeded, or only it's in direct correlation to how much I allow myself to be myself, how much I allow myself to really reach for bigger things, or ask for bigger things, or be okay with different things. And one of the things that have been really coming up for me, especially at the end of 2020, was focus, intentional focus on the things that I want, on what I want to create, but then also coming from that space of, I can have all the things that I desire as long as I believe it. So coming into that space of focus, coming into that space of allowing, and coming, like, even being able to realize that this is not in alignment and this is not in your best bet, is going to really support people in not only achieving the goals that they want, but like achieving it in such a way that feels in alignment, that feels really good, that just makes sense, so that they can continue to operate in their zone of genius, so they can continue to grow their companies and be amazing, and then give the most magic to the people that they love. So I'm actually going to be hitting you up after this, because I feel like I actually have created, I didn't get frustrated. I was responding to the feeling of like lesser than, and I was like, we're going to make intention for 2021 right now. So I actually have my list of things that I'm like, listen, universe, this is my grocery shopping list for 2021. This is what you're going to give me. Okay. Cause like, we're about this paper this year. Okay. So like really getting in the space of, choosing to manifest these things and being really good. But I also want to talk about, like, again, offline, you and I connecting and seeing what opportunities there are for mentorship, for coaching, for that sort of stuff, because I feel like I actually create the most when I'm actually doing these things based on my human design chart. I'm able to give the most, I'm able to create the most, I'm able to like just be all of me and be the best of me. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have people see this and have them connect with you. Again, please give us the best way for people to hit you up. And then like, do you have like a one-off session that people could pay for, or do you do multiple sessions? Like, tell people the things.
Okay. So yes, you can find me at theintentionalgoddess.com.
Write it down.
Yes, theintentionalgoddess.com. If you're specifically interested in the human design stuff, you can go to introtohumandesign.com. And there you can book an individual reading with me. So you can get that full 2-hour reading where we break down your chart specifically. Or by the time this comes out, I am claiming that the response for the group coaching will have come, or the prompt will have come, and it will be launched and ready. And that you will also find at introtohumandesign.com. And yeah, that's what I'm going to offer, because I think that's what feels good right now. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited for this. Thank you so much for coming on. And make sure you connect with Camille and relish and be in her space of magic. I may or may not be around because, of course, you know, my throat is closed, so I support her in that. And make sure you come on back to Navigating Mindfulness. We are going to be continuing these conversations of how to best support you and how you can best support yourself in being your most successful version of you, being your favorite version of you, and really stepping into creating the things that you're here to create, and doing it with joy, doing it with fun, doing it with excitement, doing it with energy. Again, my name is Cheryl Sutherland. Thank you so much for being here. My gorgeous co-host, the one and only Liza McGale, is out here doing the thing. So with that, have an amazing rest of your day, and book Camille.